Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Abiola, and in today's tutorial we'll be taking the sewing version of the dress I posted last week. I'm sorry this video is coming late. It's due to a few hindrances during the week. So without wasting time, let's just get straight into the tutorial of today. Okay, so guys, I've already gone ahead to cut everything on fabric. I mean the skirt part. This is the front pattern, and I added 0.5 inches to the side like I told you guys I was going to do. So that was what I did. Now this is the other side of the front. The other side of the front pattern, I also added 0.5 inches to the side. Okay, so now this is the back part of the skirt. Here's what it looks like. I cut out 2 pieces of that. The next step is to proceed to mark my dart. My nipple to nipple on my bust span is 7 inches. 7 divided by 2 gives me 3.5. That is what I marked. Then I took half inch on both sides of that 3.5. Can you see? It took half inch on both sides. Then at the top as well, I went ahead to mark 3.5. Then I proceeded to connect that into a straight line. I mean the middle line into a straight line. And the length of my dart is 5 inches. So I connected that to form a straight line. After that, I went ahead to connect the sides. Okay, I mean the half inch I took on each side, I went ahead to connect that to the top, and that forms my dart. To transfer the dart to the back of the to the other side of this back pattern, what I did was just use my scissors to notch all the points. This is just to make it easy to transfer your dart from the first back pattern to the second back pattern because they are joined together. So after notching, I'm going to go ahead to use pins at the top of the dart just to make sure that I note the top of the dart, and that's going to make it easy for me to mark the other dart. Okay, this is just an easy method of transferring your dart if you don't want to stress yourself. Okay, so that's going to help me mark the dart at the other part. Okay, so after doing that, I'll just go ahead to do the same thing, mark my dart on the front pattern as well. So the same method, the only difference is that the back pattern has zipper allowance, but this does not have. So that's it. Basically the length of the dart remains 5 inches. My nipple to nipple divided by 2 remains 3.5. so the same thing basically. The next step is to cut out facings for the bodies, both the front pattern and the back. So what I did first was to fold my fabric into 2, then place the front bodice pattern on top of it, or the front half cut. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead to trim out the top just like you see me doing, just to get a facing to use to turn it. Okay, so I raised it up and just cut it out just like that. That's how I want my facing to be. Okay, then I'll go ahead to cut out for the back as well. I'll fold it into 2 because we also need 2 pieces, even though we don't need it on fold like the front pattern. Okay, so I'm going to place the back pattern on top of it and proceed to cut out just like you see me doing, exactly as you see me doing, and that's it basically. Okay, for the skirt part as well, I'll go ahead to mark my dart. Okay, you can just transfer your dart from your pattern straight to your fabric, but for me, I just went ahead to mark it straight on the skirt. So just do what works for you basically, because we actually marked the dart on the pattern, so you can just go ahead to transfer it from that point. That's it. Now let's move on to the front skirt pattern. For this front skirt pattern, here is what it looks like. I'm here to take my dart on the front skirt pattern, but I'll be taking that after I have joined the slit area. So what I'm going to do now is to go ahead to place this skirt right sides facing each other. Okay, after placing them right sides facing each other, go ahead to pin them from beginning to the end. We are not stitching from beginning to the end. This is just to be sure that the skirt aligns. Okay, so pin them down, then note where you want your slits to stop. Okay, that is where you're going to stitch to. For me, from the waistline, I wanted my slits to stop at 13.5 inches. So where my slit stopped is 13.5 inches from the waistline. Just make it as you would want it. Now I'm going to go ahead to take in my darts. Okay, and after taking in my darts, I'll also place the facing right sides facing the main fabric, and I'll stitch just like I'm showing you. I would also hem the base of the facing and also the sides of the facing too, so that it's just neat. Okay, but if you have a weaving machine, this is the side I'm talking about. If you have a weaving machine, you can just weave them and they will look neat, but I'm going to hem that side. Then I'll take the dart of the back pattern as well. I would also put the facing, right sides facing each other. I would also hem this point, okay? Then I would also do that for the second back pattern, okay? And that's it basically. So guys, here's what I have when I was done with the facing part. I had not taken in my dart at this point, but I'll still do that. What I'm going to do is to notch. You can decide to reduce the allowance before you notch, but I notched, and after notching I decided to reduce the allowance at that point. All this is just to help facing lay nice and flat once we flip it to the other side. You know, we don't want it looking bulky and rough, okay? So you can reduce your allowance first before you notch. After doing that, go ahead to top stitch. Top stitching is very important at this point, okay? So once you are done top stitching, I also, as you can see, I've also hemmed the part I told you guys I'm going to hem, and I've already top stitched as well. I top stitched by opening my fabric this way, and I started stitching little by little till the end, okay, whilst ensuring that the allowance was towards the facing, okay? So I also went ahead to notch this ones and also top stitched as well. And at this point I had taken in all my darts except for the dart for the skirts parts. Okay, for the front skirt part I had not taken in that dart, so I'll go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and that's 3.5. So I'll do that, and the length of the dart is 5 inches as well. Okay, you can just use your pattern paper to transfer your dart basically. Okay, so I'll take ½ inch on each side and I'll connect to the length of the dart. The length of the dart remains 5 inches, okay? After marking the dart, I'll head to my sewing machine to hold the dart in, and here is what it looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to place the skirt and the top part right sides facing each other, and I will ensure that the darts align, and I will pin it down. After pinning down the front, I would also do the same thing for the back. I will join the upper bodice to the skirt part, ensuring the darts align as well. Do the same thing for the second side. Okay, so I'll head over to my sewing machine and stitch them, and here is what I have. Okay, so what I want to do now is to use my hemming gum to hold down the interfacing. Okay, so just to make sure that it looks presentable. So that's what I'm going to go ahead to do now with my iron. I would also go ahead to do the same thing for the front part of the dress. I went ahead to place the hemming gum underneath the facing, and I used my iron to hold them together. I'm going to add a lot of hemming gum underneath this so that everything lays nice and flat once I'm done ironing. So guys, here is what I have when I was done. Okay, here's the front part of the dress, and here is how the slit looks like. Okay, everything is coming together. Now bring the back part, place it right side facing up, and place the other side of the back part on top of it, right side facing the right side of the one you placed before. Now it's time to mark out the zipper allowance. I used 1.5 inches. Then I'll go ahead to connect that. Guys, I actually lost some footage at this point, but I'm going to repeat what I did here. From the waistline, I'm going to come down by my hip point, which is 10 inches, and mark 1 inch at that hip point area. And I'll connect from my waist to the hip point area using the straightest part of my curved ruler. Then I'll proceed to mark 1 inch from my hip point to the end. Okay, so what I did was to mark 1 inch from my hip point to the end. I marked 1 inch from the hip point to the end because what I actually left at that point for my allowance is 1 inch. If I had left 1.5 inches, I would have marked 1.5 inches. The next step is to go ahead and iron your zipper allowance. Iron the seams open so that everything lays nice and flat. So I did that. Then now I'm going to go ahead to open up the zipper area to where I want my zipper to stop. Okay, usually I like my zipper to stop about 10 inches from the waistline or 9 inches from the waistline. I feel like that's very okay. So after doing that, I'll go ahead to pin my zipper to where I want it to be. After which, I'll head over to my sewing machine to fix the zipper. And here is what I have when I was done doing that. It looks good. Now, the next step is to adjust the side of the dress. One side is, longer than one. If you are experiencing this, do not panic. Just place them, fold them into two this way so that you can adjust it to how it is supposed to be. So what I'm going to do now is to cut from the hip area to the waist area so that everything aligns. If you experienced this, no problem. It's probably because of the slit, so just cut it off. But if you do not, that is fine as well. So here's what I have, guys. I'm going to place the back part on top of it. The front part is facing the right side. Okay, so you place the back part on top of it. That's right sides facing each other, and I'm going to go ahead to pin all the sides so that they align properly. I'm going to pin everything from beginning to the end. If you remember from the drafting, the allowance we added is 1 inch. So I'm going to go ahead now to hold it by 1 inch from beginning to the end. Now over to the sleeve. To cut my sleeve, I'm going to fold the piece of fabric into two. The length of this fabric, let's start with the width. The width of this fabric is about 15 inches, while the length is about 23 inches, but my full length of my sleeve is about 25 inches. Like the full length of my sleeve is about 25 to 25.5. That's what I like to use. So in order to complete that, I'm going to be using this band. Okay, in order to know the width of the band, you need to measure your wrist plus 1 inch seam allowance. My wrist circumference is 9.5 plus 1 inch seam allowance gives me 10.5. That's why I cut out 10.5. Okay, the length of the band is about 5 inches, but when you fold it, it is about 2.5 inches. So we need half an inch allowance from there. So this is actually okay for us to get our sleeve length. Okay, so for the top of this sleeve, what you have to do is to first of all create a channel for your elastic, for your half-inch elastic. So go ahead and do the same thing for the two sleeves, because obviously you cut out two for the left and the right side. Okay, so after forming your channel for the elastic, you bring your band. Okay, we're going to just use the simplest method to do this today, after which you go ahead to form gathers at this point using your needle and thread or any method you are used to. So what I'm going to do is to form gathers at the end of this sleeve. Once I'm done forming the gathers, guys, I'm going to join it to the band. Okay, so use any method you like to form your gathers. I'm just going to skip through the formation of these gathers and go to the already formed gathers. After forming your gathers, go ahead to stitch the sleeve to the band using 0.5 inch seam allowance. This is not the best method to use. For a neater finish, we could have used another method, but we're going to use this for this tutorial. Okay, so now I have now formed my elastic channel for my half-inch elastic. I'll go ahead to do that as well. Okay, so now I have formed the channel for my elastic. So I'm going to place both sleeves. I'll fold them into two like this and place them on top of each other, and I would align them together as well, because we're about to carve out our armhole. We're about to carve out our armhole on the sleeve. So after doing this, I'm going to bring in the armhole, okay, of my dress, and I'm going to place it on top of the sleeve. Then I'll go ahead to trace that out using my scissors. Okay, so you have to place it in a way that it aligns from beginning to the end. That was exactly what I was trying to do. Then I'll use my scissors to cut out the armhole just like I explained. Okay, so that's it. Our armhole is ready. The next thing is to bring in our elastic that we're going to pass through the channel. I'm going to measure out an elastic about 9 inches long. Okay, so I'm going to cut that out. That's what I'm going to pass through the two elastic channels for the sleeves. Okay, so I'm going to use my safety pin to pass them through the channels. That isn't something I want to bore you with, so I'm going to just skip to the part where I've already passed my elastic through the channels, okay, for both sleeves. So guys, at this point I have passed my elastic through the channel. Now the next step is to, turn your dress to the right side. Okay, turn it to the right side. And if you joined your side seam from beginning to the end, you have to loosen some part of it. As you can see, mine is not fully joined. Then you're going to place the sleeve, one angle of the sleeve, right sides facing the right side of the dress, and you pin it down or you clip it down if you have clips. So you also pin down the other end, or you clip down the other end as well. Okay, then for the second side you do the same thing. You hold the sleeve and place it right sides facing the right side from the other angle. You also go ahead to pin them or clip them together, whichever one you want to do. At this point I used pins, so you either use your clips or you use your pins. Then I'll do the same thing for the top before I head over to my sewing machine and stitch. I would also do the same thing for the other sleeve, but just repeat what you did for the first sleeve for the other sleeve basically. Then proceed to join the sides just like you see me doing. I've closed my sleeve. Okay, after closing the first time I wore the dress, it didn't give me the fit I wanted. I went ahead to hold it again. So wear your dress, check the fit, and hold your allowance accordingly. Now go to the market and weave round my dress. Before I even work on the slit, I'm going to go ahead and weave the dress in the market. As you can see guys, my slit is 13.5 inches from the waistline. Okay, so yeah, so here is the dress after I had gone to market to weave it. Now I'm going to finish everything off with the hemming gum. Guys, please take a look at how I finished one edge of the slit. I'm going to explain how I achieved this neat finish, okay, using the other side of the slit. Okay, can you see how it looks? Okay, so that's just one thing I learned of recent, so I'm going to share that with you guys. The first thing you need to do is to iron your hemming allowance and iron your slit very well so that it forms this crease. Can you see? I had ironed my the hem area of my dress, and I had ironed the slit area so that it forms this crease. Okay, so after doing that guys, what I'm going to do next is to use my chalk to mark out where the hem line stopped, and to also use my chalk to mark out where the slit line area stopped as well. So I'm going to mark both edges. Okay, after doing that guys, I'm going to open it up this way and proceed to match the lines together, match the point, like match the two lines together, and flip it to the wrong side. Then use your pin to hold that point where the line is at. Can you see? So what you're going to do now is to bring your chalk and connect from the edge. You see that edge where your ironing mark is at? Connect from that edge to the point where your pin is at. Okay, so connect from that edge to where your pin is at using a straight line, like a straight ruler. Then head to your sewing machine to sew on that line. Can you see? That's the line I stitched on. I used a black thread so that people can see it. So after which, cut off your excess allowance and then flip it to the right side. Can you see guys? It just gives this nice finish. I learned it recently on Instagram and I thought to share with you guys. Now I am going to go in with my hemming gum to hold the slit area in place. Okay, I'm going to iron that properly as you can see me doing. I'll also do the same thing for the hem part of the dress. Basically I don't want to use machine to hem it. I'm just going to use my hemming gun to hem it, and it's going to look really nice. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna do. And guys, I'm done. Here is what I have when I was done guys. It's already looking nice. So that's it basically. Watching guys, see you in the next tutorial.